We've been talking about the global crunch in energy supplies in recent weeks. Now Turkey is feeling the strain.
Turkey is now the 17th largest economy in the world.
What if Turkey, a nation at the crossroads of continents, cultures, and history, is on the brink of redefining global power dynamics? Leading this bold transformation is none other than Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan.
Yes, I think it's quite clear that he wants to concentrate power in his own hands.
A figure as polarizing as he is strategic. Love him or hate him, you can't deny this. Erdogan has mastered the art of navigating one of the most complex geopolitical landscapes of our time. Recently, Erdogan made headlines at the European Political Community Summit in Budapest, reiterating Turkey's unwavering ambition to join the European Union. The timing? Perfectly calculated. In a world grappling with shifting alliances and mounting tensions, Erdogan's move couldn't be more significant. But here's the twist. Erdogan isn't just playing one game, he's playing all of them. By maintaining ties with Russia while actively engaging with NATO and the EU, he's walking a razor-thin line. Yet if Turkey finally gains EU membership, this balancing act could come to an abrupt end. Turkey's alignment with the West would leave Russia cornered, with one less neutral partner to rely on. Now, let's rewind to 2022. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the world responded with swift sanctions and severed ties, isolating Moscow on the global stage.
US and UK have imposed sweeping sanctions against Russia's energy sector over its invasion of Ukraine.
But Turkey took a different route. Instead of pulling away, it leaned in, doubling its imports of Russian oil and gas, with energy trade surging to a staggering $41 billion in just 1 year. Why would Erdogan make such a controversial choice? At the time, Turkey's economy was spiraling. Inflation was out of control, the Turkish lira was in free fall, and families were struggling just to make ends meet. A steady energy supply wasn't a luxury, it was a lifeline. Russia stepped in, offering cheap energy, and Erdogan seized the opportunity. From the outside, it looked like Erdogan was cozying up to Putin. But in reality, he was playing chess while everyone else played checkers. With affordable energy fueling factories and homes, Turkey avoided the crippling shortages that left much of Europe scrambling. Erdogan kept the lights on while waiting for the right moment to make his next move. And then came the curveball. Erdogan recently declared that Crimea, annexed by Russia in 2014, should be returned to Ukraine. A bold statement, and not one you'd expect from someone supposedly in Moscow's corner. Why now? And why does Turkey's EU bid matter so much? At first glance, you might think joining the EU wouldn't change much for Turkey, especially since it's already a NATO member. But here's the catch. NATO and the EU are worlds apart. NATO is about defense standing united in the face of military threats. The EU, however, is about integration. Joining the EU would mean opening borders, aligning laws, and committing to values like democracy and human rights. For Turkey, it would also mean access to one of the largest and most lucrative markets in the world, a potential game changer for its struggling economy. But this isn't just about trade or politics. It's about control over one of the world's most vital maritime choke points, the Bosphorus and Dardanelles Straits. These narrow waterways are Russia's lifeline between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. Under the Montreux Convention of 1936, Turkey already has the power to regulate naval traffic through these straits, especially during wartime. If Turkey joins the EU, this control takes on a whole new meaning. Imagine a scenario where Turkey, now a fully Western ally, blocks Russian warships from entering the Black Sea. For Putin, it would be a devastating blow, cutting off a critical military route and leaving Russia's Black Sea fleet stranded. Back in 2022, Erdogan hesitated to invoke this power. While condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine, he tread lightly, careful not to sever ties with Moscow completely. This hesitation allowed Russian warships to reinforce their positions early in the conflict, drawing criticism from Western leaders. But the tide is turning, and so is Erdogan's strategy. So what's next for Turkey? Will Erdogan's high-stakes game lead his country to EU membership? And cement its role as a global superpower? Or will the balancing act unravel, pulling Turkey into deeper geopolitical entanglements? One thing's for sure, the world is watching, and Erdogan isn't done surprising us yet. Close the straits to military ships, invoking the wartime provisions of the Montreux Convention. For Vladimir Putin, this move was another blow, an embarrassing reminder of his growing isolation. Turkey's unexpected shift in policy sent ripples far beyond its borders, signaling to NATO allies that Turkey was now ready to stand shoulder to shoulder with them, even after its earlier hesitations. But Russia wasn't easily thwarted. In the shadows of the Montreux Convention, there lay a loophole, a small exemption allowing warships to pass through the straits if they were simply returning to their home ports. This clever interpretation meant that Turkey couldn't entirely block Russia's access to the Black Sea, as Russian vessels could easily claim they were merely returning home. Yet the agreement strictly prohibited those ships from engaging in active conflict. But Putin, always a master of bending the rules, ignored this restriction with brazen disregard. To make matters worse, Russia had a significant advantage in the Mediterranean. Nearly half of its fleet, more than 4 dozen ships, was stationed just outside the straits. By labeling these ships as returning to base, Russia bypassed Turkey's restrictions and strengthened its presence in the Black Sea. Turkey's potential membership in the European Union (EU) would significantly reshape regional dynamics, especially concerning its control of the Bosporus Strait. As part of the EU, Turkey's decisions regarding the straits would align with EU policies, potentially leading to tighter enforcement of the Montreux Convention. This could block Russian access to vital regions, such as the Middle East and North Africa, by limiting access to the Black Sea. Russia's Mediterranean fleet, crucial in the Syrian civil war, would lose operational access, weakening its regional influence. Russia's reliance on Black Sea ports like Novorossiysk and Sevastopol for the export of essential goods, oil, grain, and more, would be jeopardized by EU control over the straits. A potential blockade of Russian vessels supported by EU inspections could disrupt these exports, inflating costs and damaging Russia's economy. Moreover, Turkey's growing imports of Russian oil would conflict with EU sanctions, curtailing its economic independence and increasing alignment with EU policies. Turkey's purchase of the Russian S-400 missile system in 2017 marked a significant departure from NATO-aligned defense strategies, creating tension between Turkey and the West. Although Turkey aimed to bolster its security, the move strained its relationship with NATO and led to US sanctions, including exclusion from the F-35 program. However, recent shifts in Turkey's stance on Russia, particularly its support for Ukraine, may influence future negotiations on this issue, potentially easing tensions and opening avenues for compromise. Turkey's path to EU membership has been long and complicated. Despite applying for EU membership in the 1950s,
Erdogan and Putin feel the need for rebalancing and reforming the international system.
Political instability, human rights concerns, and other hurdles have delayed progress. However, Turkey's economic growth and recent reforms have improved its prospects. EU membership, while a powerful tool for shaping regional policies, would require Turkey to fully align with EU values and regulations, a challenge given its complex political landscape and relationships with Russia. In conclusion, Turkey's integration into the EU would reshape its geopolitical role, particularly in relation to Russia. It would require tough decisions on security, trade, and foreign relations, but could provide Turkey with greater stability and economic integration into Europe. However, this process remains complex, with political, strategic, and economic obstacles to overcome. But the road to the EU is long, and the challenges remain. While Turkey's relationship with Europe has been fraught with tension, it's clear that both sides will need to navigate a complex web of historical, political, and security considerations to find common ground. And the question remains, how much longer will Turkey wait for a place at the European table? In 1987, Turkey took a bold step, applying for full EU membership, a move that symbolized its desire to draw closer to Europe and show its commitment to becoming a part of the Western world. Yet despite Turkey's aspirations, the EU remained skeptical. Citing concerns over Turkey's human rights record and its dedication to the EU's democratic values, the EU rejected the application. For Turkey, this decision was a harsh blow.
Turkey must choose. Does it want to remain a critical partner of the most successful military alliance in the history of the world?
But it didn't extinguish the nation's resolve to stay in the EU's sights. Then, in 1995, Turkey made another move, signing a customs union agreement with the EU. This seemed like a major breakthrough in their relationship. By removing tariffs on industrial goods and aligning trade policies with EU standards, Turkey's exports to Europe surged, strengthening economic ties. However, beneath this economic success, political tensions still simmered. The Kurdish conflict, with its escalating military crackdowns and widespread displacement, cast a shadow over Turkey's EU ambitions. The EU, deeply focused on minority rights, saw this as a stark contradiction to its values. Amidst this turmoil, Turkish leaders like Necmettin Erbakan, who became the country's first Islamic prime minister in 1996, stirred further concerns. His push for Islamic values in public life clashed with Europe's staunch commitment to secularism. At the 1997 Luxembourg summit, the EU granted candidate status to 11 other countries, but pointedly excluded Turkey. To the Turkish people, this exclusion felt like a painful rejection, a reminder of Europe's hesitation to embrace them fully. Yet in 1999, a glimmer of hope emerged. At the Helsinki summit, Turkey was finally recognized as an official candidate for EU membership. This was more than just a diplomatic victory. It became a blueprint for change. Over the next 5 years, Turkey focused on meeting the EU's strict criteria, marking the beginning of a transformative period. Then, in 2003, Recep Tayyip Erdogan ascended to power, infusing new energy into Turkey's EU ambitions. Recognizing the widespread desire for EU membership among Turkish citizens, Erdogan used this momentum to push for sweeping domestic reforms, including reducing military influence in politics, abolishing the death penalty, and even allowing Kurdish language broadcasts. By 2005, Turkey was formally negotiating with the EU. This moment seemed to signal the long-awaited breakthrough. Yet, as negotiations progressed, it became clear that the road ahead was far more complex than anticipated. In nearly 2 decades of talks, Turkey has opened just 16 of the 35 required chapters, each representing a crucial area of reform. Only one chapter has been provisionally closed, underscoring the slow pace of progress. But the Cyprus issue remains one of the most significant obstacles. Since 1974, Cyprus has been divided, with Turkey controlling the north and the Republic of Cyprus, an EU member, governing the south. The EU has demanded Turkey open its ports to Cypriot vessels, but Turkey insists that such moves are contingent on progress in resolving the Cyprus conflict. Another point of contention lies in Turkey's size and predominantly Muslim population, fueling ongoing debates about whether Turkey truly belongs in the EU. Leaders like France's Nicolas Sarkozy and Germany's Angela Merkel have voiced opposition to full membership, suggesting instead a privileged partnership. The 2010s brought new challenges to Turkey-EU relations. The 2013 Gezi Park protests ignited nationwide unrest, with citizens demanding more freedoms, such as freedom of expression and judicial independence. The government's harsh response, brutal crackdowns on protesters, provoked sharp criticism from both the EU and the global community. Then came a fleeting moment of hope in 2016. Turkey and the EU reached a landmark migrant deal. Turkey agreed to curb the flow of migrants from the Middle East into Europe, and in return, the EU promised financial aid, nearly visa-free travel for Turkish citizens, and an acceleration of Turkey's EU negotiations.
Turkey was one of the main backers of the rebels for many years. They have very close contacts.
While Turkey delivered on its part, dramatically reducing migrant crossings, the promised benefits failed to materialize. Visa-free travel stalled, and EU negotiations barely advanced, leaving Turkey feeling betrayed and deepening its frustration with the EU. Each of these chapters in Turkey's EU journey is a story of ambition, disappointment, and resilience, a reminder that the path to union is never straightforward, and that for Turkey, the dream of EU membership remains an evolving struggle between hope and reality. Erdogan learned a profound lesson from a pivotal moment. By easing control over the flow of migrants, he could create a crisis for Europe whenever he wished. This newfound power fueled a growing mistrust between Turkey and the EU, leaving both sides suspicious and on edge. Just months after signing a migrant agreement, Turkey was plunged into chaos once again. This time, a failed coup in July 2016, orchestrated by a fraction of its own military, aimed at toppling Erdogan. Though the coup failed, it left Erdogan seething, not just with the plotters, but with the EU. Instead of offering swift and resolute support for Turkey's democracy in its hour of need, the EU's response was cold, delayed, and distant. At that moment, it felt to Erdogan like Europe had turned its back on him. In the wake of the failed coup, Erdogan's government responded with fierce retaliation. Thousands of civil servants, military personnel, journalists, and academics were purged or arrested, suspected of being involved. The EU wasted no time condemning the crackdown, calling it undemocratic, a rebuke that only deepened Erdogan's resentment. The divide between Turkey and the EU grew even wider. By late 2016, Erdogan publicly suggested that Turkey might look beyond the EU, even contemplating alternatives like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. While his words were more symbolic than practical, they revealed a profound disillusionment with Turkey's long-sought EU membership. Around the same time, Erdogan sought solace in a new ally, Vladimir Putin. After the coup attempt, Putin was one of the first world leaders to reach out, offering his support, a gesture Erdogan would not forget. Over time, the bond between the two leaders grew stronger, with Erdogan seeing in Putin a partner who didn't judge him on democracy or human rights. Their collaboration blossomed, especially in defense and energy, marked by Turkey's controversial purchase of the S-400 missile system in 2017. This complex, sometimes contradictory relationship with both the West and Russia is what keeps Turkey in limbo, even after decades of trying. And now, as the EU extends its future membership promises to Ukraine, it seems that Turkey's aspirations for EU membership may remain in suspended animation for the foreseeable future.